Welcome back to AFTV and welcome to another In Focus. We've done a lot of these recently. We started this mini-series during the World Cup. We wanted to really heap some praise on 5 players that we felt had, especially from a tactical perspective, made a real difference to Arsenal. And of course, with the new signings, we covered Leandro Trossard, we covered Jakub Kiwior, and we covered Eddie Nketiah because of how amazingly well he's done coming into the team since Gabriel Jesus' knee injury. By the way, great to see that he's back on the pitch, doing at least some running and some light workout. But now we're going to talk about Jorginho, not the player I thought we would be making In Focus on. But you know what, that's the amazing, weird world of football. Who would have thought Cancelo would have left Man City for Bayern Munich? Who would have thought Sabitzer on the final day was gettable for United and they went and got that done? And who would have thought that Arsenal would go and get Jorginho from Chelsea and bring him to the Emirates Stadium, a player that Arteta has looked at very carefully. Now, this In Focus is going to be focused around the tactical application, is that the word you'd use, of Jorginho's strengths and weaknesses in this Arsenal team. I want to have a look at that because I think it's interesting when you look at some of his numbers, what he ranks really well in and what he struggles in. When it comes to sort of understanding what he'll bring to Arsenal, but also how Arsenal and the players around him will have to help get the best out of him as well. That's the element I want to explore. Now, with these In Focus videos, you could always look at the wider picture. You know, we could always do a video talking about how Arteta's wanted him since, he wanted him in 2020, and the quotes, about him, seeing him like Busquets as a specialist number 6 who can be a lone holding midfielder. You could look at the fact Guardiola wanted him at Man City before he went to Chelsea, and Arteta was an assistant manager, or certainly one of the coaches there as well. That is all part of the admiration. You could look at Thiago Silva's quote, where he said that we've lost a leader. You could look at Cucurella calling him the most intelligent or smartest player in the squad. That was just before, actually on the day he was announced that he'd joined Arsenal. So, you can look at all those elements. I think those are important. They're important to just know of. That's why I'm mentioning them now. But like I said, I want to focus more on the tactical element here. I want to focus on what Jorginho is and could bring to this Arsenal team, and why the experience he's had at his previous club, Chelsea, in his time playing as a holding midfielder for Italy, could bode really well for this exact system he plays in for Arsenal, and again, how we can get the best out of him as well. So let's have a little look at the Chelsea team, and I've got it here on my tactical pad. We've got a 3-4-3, the system they've played mainly in the time that Jorginho's there. Of course, he played as a lone 6 when Sarri signed him. Under Tuchel, they played more of a 3-4-3. And again, even under Potter, really, you've had times where they play in a slightly different way. But again, it tends to have been a 3-4-3 shape and a back 3. We saw that at Anfield very recently. So here I've got the team, and in yellow I've highlighted the position Jorginho would be playing. It could be playing on the other side as well. He could be playing on the left of a midfield too. Wherever you want. Essentially, he's a central midfielder in there. Now, in this shape, what you get when Chelsea are playing as a 3-4-3 is your back 3. Cool, they split. You've got your sort of your wide forwards or inside forwards sort of playing either side of a striker, and your wing backs getting really high up the pitch. And it's almost like a 5-5 or a 3-2-5. You've got a shape in which Jorginho has got a midfield partner alongside of him, but there's plenty of protection. But also, they can drop into a very nice condensed shape as well as a 5-4-1. That's the beauty of the system that Chelsea played quite successfully, won the Champions League in. When they beat Man City in that final under Tuchel, and he had a lot of joy there. They beat Real Madrid in the run to that final. They beat Atletico Madrid, I think, as well. So you see here, that's how he's played for Chelsea. Let's have a little look at the system he played in for Italy. Now again, highlighted him with a white ring around him there. That would be where he'd be playing at the base of midfield 3. Now what he had was Locatelli, who'd get up and down. Verratti came into the team a little bit later, plays that role slightly differently, but Locatelli very much box to box. You had Barella as well, very much box to box, can be a little bit of a creative outlet, and he would sit at the base, and you had a sort of, again, inside forwards, a 3 that would be, or 2 that would be quite close to that central striker. But they'd also do it slightly differently, where sometimes when it was Chiesa out on the right, he'd pull wide, because you had, was it Di Lorenzo, I think, would slot in next to the back 3 a little bit, and you had Spinazzola who'd get up the pitch, and again, you're sort of seeing similar sort of patterns of play. But the point is, this was how he was deployed at the very base of a midfield 3 in a 4-3-3 shape, the shape that Arsenal played themselves. So let's have a little look at Arsenal's shape. Oh, we've got him in there. Here's a 4-3-3 with Arsenal. And again, we've put him at the base there. Nketiah leads the line because he's done so well recently. And of course, Jesus is still injured. And of course, we play Everton later today if you're watching this, or tomorrow if you're watching this as soon as it comes out. Jorginho would be coming in to play in Partey's role at the base. Now, what's interesting, I touched on it earlier, is the experience he's had playing for Chelsea and Italy as well. Having played at the base of a midfield three for Italy, that makes him very well equipped to come in and do the same for Arsenal. He's done it for Chelsea as well. When Sarri was there, he did it at Napoli. He can play as that lone six. But when you look at Arsenal's shape as well and the way they line up, with Martinelli and Saka really high and wide, Xhaka and Odegaard coming in to make those, what Graham likes to say often on Tactical Inside, the fourth and fifth of those 5 lanes. They get very close to the front 5. And then what you get as well is your back 3 splitting with Gabriel, Saliba and White, and Zinchenko coming all the way into midfield as well. What does this remind me of personally? It reminds me of an attacking 4-3-3 shape. Let's just show it a little bit. You got your 3, you got your 4, you got your 3. Now with Arsenal, it's slightly different because there's not as much defensive duty on those high and wide players, the players holding the width, like Martinelli and Saka. Arsenal press high up the pitch. If they are to, having to drop into a deep shape, Xhaka will cover and Zinchenko will restore to the left back position, and you've got your back 4. But this is a shape in which Jorginho, again, in his 3-4-3 shape at Chelsea, would have been very accustomed to. The more sort of inside forward players, or the players closest to those central high areas as well, and then the width provided by Martinelli and Saka. So I don't think coming into this Arsenal shape that has been very finely tuned under Arteta, it's got a very particular way of playing that is very, particularly coached. I don't think Jorginho, with the experience he's had at Italy and Chelsea very, very recently, should find it too difficult to adapt to this shape and this system that Arsenal are playing in, because ultimately, in possession, it's very, very similar to a lot of what he's been doing, because sometimes, Zinchenko won't always come inside, sometimes it will be a case of a 3-4-3, like that. And again, mirroring a lot more of what he's done in his time at Italy. So it shouldn't be too difficult for Jorginho to adapt to this Arsenal system, because I think he's actually played in teams that form very similar shapes in very recent history as well. Let's have a little look at his passing. Now here we've got the stat in particular we're talking about, his per 90. This is all thanks to FBref. As always, I like to go to FBref for these kind of numbers. And of course his percentile ranking to see where he ranks amongst other players in the Premier League for some of these numbers. Now again, for passes completed, passes attempted, progressive passing distance, he's up there. He's in the top 20%. And I always like to just explain what the percentile ranking means. Essentially, the closer you are to the number 99, the closer you are to the very top end of the Premier League for midfielders in these particular stats. So it's good. Closer to 99, the better. 83rd, 82nd, 83rd percentile ranking for those top 3 passing stats that we mentioned there. Then you go to short passing, short pass completion. Again, 90%. Very, very good. 9 out of 10 short passes makes it to its destination. In the 75th percentile, though, not the absolute highest. And then it drops a little bit for medium pass completion and long pass completion as well. And then his attempted long passes, 5.21 per game, puts him in the lower 56%, almost the lower half of Premier League midfielders for attempted long passes, which shows that he wants to keep things short, he wants to keep things neat. He's not going to do anything particularly expansive, and that's going to be interesting to see, because we've seen Partey attempt that long pass over the top to Saka as well. So is it that in this Chelsea system Jorginho hasn't had to do it, hasn't been asked to do it, or is it that he doesn't do it very well? That's what's going to be very interesting to see, because this isn't long pass completion, this is actually attempted long passes. He doesn't try that often. Does he have the range to find Saka and beyond and go long, which we know sometimes Ben White overlaps. We know that Arsenal will look to do that sometimes as well. And I just don't think he's going to have the sort of effect in the final third that you expect to see. Yes, he scores penalties, we know that, but in terms of expected assists, 0.03 per game, that puts him in the 13th percentile, and key passes per game, 0.49, which puts him in the 21st percentile. I think he's there to keep things very neat, very tidy in the middle third, keep things ticking, and not have too much of an impact in the final third. Let's talk about some of his defensive numbers. which some are a lot more impressive than you perhaps expect to see. Tackles, 2.69 per 90 in the 89th percentile, also ranks very high for tackles in the defensive third, for tackles won, for dribblers tackled, for dribblers contested, and interceptions as well. Not numbers that I would have thought he'd have ranked so highly in, because people are worried about his defensive duties, people are worried about his immobility a little bit. He doesn't look as box-to-box, as dynamic as a Casemiro, a Partey, a Rodri, a Kante who's played alongside. But some of these defensive numbers are very impressive. When you dig a little bit deeper, you see that his tackles in the defensive third are pretty good, 1.55. That's where he does most of it, and he ranks highly for that. His tackles in the middle third, 0.99. Doesn't rank brilliantly. And tackles in the attacking third, yeah, not bad, 75th percentile at 0.42. So he seems happier to do his defensive work either in the final third or in the defensive third. In the middle third is maybe where he struggles, and you see that because he's been dribbled past 1.69 times per 90. That puts him in the lowest 2%. That's a pretty poor number, and actually it feeds into what Matisse was saying to me. I talked about this on DR Sports as well, where Matisse, actually, we were speaking, and he said, look, he is someone that he'll always be committed. Defending in tight space is brilliant, and that leans into the numbers we're seeing here. But in transition is where he might have problems. So how does that work for what he does in this Arsenal system? Well, I think it actually works quite well, because if we look at Arsenal's defensive shape, and we've just got some random Man City sort of players, representing a 4-3-3 shape for Man City here. Now, when you look at Arsenal, a lot of talk has been about their press and their man-for-man press. They are following their players all over the pitch at times. I'm just putting them randomly anywhere, but you get my point. Actually, maybe it'd more be Odegaard there, following, and Jorginho, whatever. You get my point. Arsenal go very man-for-man across the pitch. Now, Arsenal can have a lot of joy in doing that if, they go man-for-man. He's shown that he can intercept well, that he can tackle well, that he can actually win his duels. And so Arsenal could probably have a lot of joy still with Jorginho deployed in this sort of pressing role as a DM all over the pitch, like we did when we went to the Etihad, like we do when Partey's in that role, and that should be fine. But I think the key to it is that Arsenal really squeeze and make the pitch as small as possible. How we show it? Let's make this in yellow. It's really trying to keep their opposition. That's not very good. Let's do this again. In this box shape here, really keeping them pinned in. Now, again, what did I say? When you look at what Matisse said, in tight spaces, defending in tight areas, he's able to get places. His defensive stats suggest that he can be very impressive in this area of the pitch. But I think two players that are crucial to ensuring this will work are, we'll highlight them here, William Saliba and Gabriel. Because when you've got recovery defenders who are very, very good at covering around you, and let's not just forget them, let's not just remember them as well. Let's talk about Xhaka when he gets forward. Jorginho covers that space. And you've got White and Zinchenko pinned in as well, keeping it very tight alongside Jorginho. I think those players are going to be very, very crucial. I think players who have really good recovery speed, who can help really squeeze the pitch, who can win their duels. So if Jorginho doesn't win, all he's got to do is attempt the duel, try and make it difficult, and then they sweep up behind. I think at that area of the pitch, Jorginho will be absolutely fine because there's really good cover, and because Arsenal are very good at squeezing the pitch and making sure that it's a very small, tight area to play in. He's got the technical ability to keep the ball in that area of the pitch when it gets tight, but he's also got the defensive ability, clearly when you look at the numbers, to put in the tackles, put in the interceptions, and sweep up and keep things moving, as that middle three that I've highlighted there can protect Gabriel and Saliba as well. They're going to be crucial. But at the same time, for everything I've just said, Arsenal as well do drop into deep shapes. That is something that I don't think gets talked about enough, is that Arsenal are very happy, and I'm just drawing it here, getting back into deep lines and making it difficult for a Man City to try and play through as well. They don't mind making this area of the pitch really congested as well, and saying, okay, The press didn't work, we've retreated into a shape, you've retained a little bit of the ball in the middle third, let's drop into a deep block and see if you can play through us. And yet that midfield of Xhaka and Jorginho, it doesn't feel the most box-to-box, doesn't feel the most energetic, but in tight spaces they actually defend very well. Xhaka's fantastic at dropping into the back three at times, and I've got no doubt that Jorginho, as we saw from those numbers, does most of his tackling and defending in the defensive third as well, is more than happy to drop in and cover. So I think for what Arsenal do and the way they approach pressing and attacking and having a certain shape in the attacking third, dominating possession and dropping deep, Jorginho should be absolutely fine there and tactically fit into what Arsenal and Arteta have been doing very, very well. You might be looking at this thinking, well, you've just sort of covered all areas. Not necessarily. You might have a team that, if we clear this, you might have a team that, I'm going to make a little bit of a mess of this, that press high up the pitch, but they leave their centre-backs quite deep. You might have that, in which case, if Arsenal were to find themselves with a really open pitch here, I think Jorginho would struggle to cover that area personally. So I think it's about keeping things really condensed across the pitch, whether it's in the attacking third or the defensive third. And I think it's about looking at how Jorginho, slotting into this Arsenal system in possession, is actually going to be playing in a system that he's very used to, pretty much player for player and where they stand, as he's been used to in his time at Chelsea and Italy as well. Speaking to other Chelsea fans, they talk about how he's a leader behind the scenes. They talk about how he's really appreciated for his character, the way, his footballing intelligence. All these things are going to be really important. And I think when you look at that setup, Arsenal might have just found not the perfect man, but maybe quite near it. And Mikel Arteta's definitely wanted him for a long time. We know that. So we'll see. We'll see how Jorginho does. I'm, of course, looking at the positives here. Yes, in transition he might struggle. Yes, he might not have the dynamism our usual sixes have had, and that might show. But I actually think there's a lot of encouragement when you look at the way Arsenal play to suggest that Jorginho will probably be a good signing. All right, we'll leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section, how do you think we'll reflect in 18 months' time on the Jorginho signing? Hell, how do you think we'll reflect come the summer on this Jorginho signing? Because really it's about getting us over the line for the Premier League title. Can he do it? Still a long way to go, but he's got the experience with everything he's won, the Euros, the Champions League, the Club World Cup, the Europa League as well, the European Super Cup. He's achieved a lot. He might have the experience to get us over the line. Let me know your thoughts. We'll catch you on the next one.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.